Law for Life, the podcast, with Franklin Solicitors.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Law for Life. Today we're talking about the world of litigation, and we've got our head of litigation and dispute resolution from Franklin Solicitors with us today, who is George Smith. Hello, George.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Hello, thank you very much for joining us in the studio. So, in a nutshell, what is litigation all about? What kind of things come under litigation?
Well, litigation is about resolving disputes between people or companies and coming to a sensible resolution as quickly and cheaply as possible. Okay,
so a lot of this could be domestic disputes, I guess.
It can be, yes.
So you would help people if they have problems with the neighbours or with different situations that were affecting them in their property, maybe?
Yes, very much so, yes. If you've got a neighbour that's causing harassment, alarm or dispute or anything like that, then yes, we can get involved to try and bring that to an end.
Okay, so what I thought we'd do today is come up with a few sort of typical scenarios that people might be going through, and then you can give some general advice, but obviously it's always best to speak to a solicitor directly and get something that's a bit more particular to your circumstances. But we'll try and talk generally about some of these things. So how about if you've got a neighbour with a pet that's disturbing you, maybe a dog that's barking all the way through the night, and maybe you've got small kids and you're trying to get them to sleep, and the baby's keeping you awake because it keeps getting woken up by the dog every time it starts dropping off. Is there anything that you can do about nuisance pets next door?
Sure. Well, lots of people have dogs, and yes, dogs do bark. That's natural.
That's what they do.
Yes, but it's when it becomes unreasonable. If it's lengthy, if it's at unsociable hours, when perhaps the dog might be sleeping when we're sleeping. So yes, I always say the first thing you should do is try and contact your neighbour to see if something can be done, if they're aware that the dog is barking, and steps that they can take to resolve it amicably. So that's the direct communication aspect.
And is it important to be able to show that you've tried that before you go down a legal route? Would they expect to have seen an attempt to be made to talk about it first?
Yes, because that's a very cheap and quick direct option. So yes, always try and resolve it yourself as friendly as you can. We all want to get along with our neighbours, don't we? So
it's just awkward sometimes, isn't it? If you're not the most assertive person and you're more passive aggressive, post-it notes than kind of direct confrontation, but you can leave a little note under the door saying, stop this dog.
Notes can be taken out of context, though. So if you're struggling with that approach, then maybe a friend or another neighbour can help you come up with a way of an approach if your neighbour is approachable. But it's only if they're not approachable or they refuse to do anything about it or the problem persists that we can get involved and try and help.
So is there a kind of criteria of what constitutes nuisance, or is it very much in your perception as the person making the complaint?
Well, if it's beyond the standards of the reasonable person, so what would be acceptable? So if the dog is persistently barking, and it might be a problem that's not being addressed with the dog, but we can approach the local council, who under the Environmental Protection Act 1990 can investigate noise complaints. And if it's deemed a statutory nuisance, they can issue an abatement notice requiring the owner to take specific actions to address that. They can fit your property with a noise monitor to monitor that, which is all evidence gathering to see the level of decibels that the dog is causing, and whether there's a pattern to that.
Okay, it's interesting. So I guess people could just go directly to the council and get them to investigate it. What difference do you get when you have a solicitor involved?
Well, the council will approach it regardless of whether a solicitor approaches or whether you approach yourself. So we wouldn't carry any weight in that regard. They would give you the favour if you approach them directly. So at this point, there's no added benefit of using a solicitor to approach the council.
Okay, but I guess if you can't reach a resolution with what the council can do, then you can take steps a little bit further.
Yes, of course you can. So you could apply to the Magistrates Court for a noise abatement order. That can be enforced through prosecution if there's any failure to comply. we can arrange alternative dispute resolution, such as mediation or arbitration. And lastly, a community protection notice could also be issued by the local council under the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014, which can lead to a prosecution.
Okay, and it would obviously be the neighbours, not the dog, that's in court.
Correct. Yes.
Owner of it. It's not the dog's fault.
It's not the dog. We don't send the dog to jail or anything like that.
Poor little dog.
I know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the smallest dogs that have the loudest bark, isn't it?
Well, there's things you can do. So it might not be the most kind thing, but you can get special collars for the dog. So when the dog barks loudly, it emits high-pitched noises that the dog doesn't like, and it discourages them. There's lots of ways. It's just basically training your pet. Isn't it?
And you could always ask your vet for guidance and advice on what you should do. It might be a behavioural issue, it might be in pain or anything. So it definitely needs looking into.
See, what I would do is get some leaflets about how to stop your dog barking and just post them through the letterbox of the neighbour.
Could be informal guidance.
Informal guidance.
Yeah.
Just see if that kind of gets them to kind of take the hint. Okay, so that's dogs barking. What if it's a cat? Now, cats obviously they might purr very loudly, but I don't think that's going to bother anybody. I think with cats, it's more what they do in the garden. So if you're gardening and you're kind of weeding and then you discover something that you weren't expecting buried in the undergrowth that the cat has left behind as a little gift for you, is there anything that you can do about cat poo?
Well, cats roam, don't they? And they roam anywhere, and they often say that the cat owns you, you don't own the cat. So obviously you can't do anything that's harmful to the cat, but there are different methods, such as motion activated sprinklers and things like that. You can't do anything harmful, because that's an offence under the Animal Welfare Act 2006, to cause any pain, suffering, injury or distress to the cat. So it could be certain smells that turn the cats away, or putting something on your fence as a deterrent to cats, that sort of thing. But you can't physically generally stop them from coming into your garden, I'm afraid.
Is there something legal you can do if it persists?
No, there isn't.
Nothing. There's no law against it.
They just roam. They can do that. So you can't hold a cat back from entering your land, I'm afraid.
Wow.
Yeah, nothing
so
legal.
No cat trespass laws exist?
No, none at all.
Wow. Okay. What about... Now, this is something that must come up a lot. Parking and neighbours parking somewhere you don't want them to. Maybe blocking your driveway. Is there something you can do about that?
Well, funnily enough, this is something my daughter's about to experience, because she's just about to buy a house outside a primary school. So
that's the worst, isn't it? When
aware.
During the school run, people just abandon their cars wherever they want to and just drop the kids off, and they're like, oh, it's only 5 minutes, but it causes huge problems, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, people will say, I'm just leaving it here because I'm running out to pick my child up from school or drop them off, and I'm only going to be a few minutes. But actually, that's a few minutes you might be leaving or coming home from work or something like that when you want to use your driveway. So the council can issue a penalty charge notice if anyone's obstructing a driveway, particularly if there's a dropped curb. But you shouldn't make any attempt to tow, clamp, block or damage the car in any way.
Really? Because if they're parking in a way that's blocking your driveway, and you put a clamp on them and say, come and talk to me if you want this removed and stop blocking my driveway, that's illegal.
You can't do that, no. So it might be worth putting a note under the car to say, please don't park here again, and hopefully one note will be the resolution to it. But if it persists, then yes, the police or the council can come round and put a note on the car to stop it parking and blocking your driveway, because some people have had to get taxis to work and things like that.
It might be a medical emergency and you can't get out of the house.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe talk to the school as well and see if they can send a message out to parents saying, please park considerately.
Schools do put little signs out of like children or police or whatever to try and discourage antisocial parking and things like that.
I guess it also happens if you live near a train station or an airport or
Yeah,
somewhere, and
could
people
be.
don't want to pay to park in the car park, and then
Yeah.
they just abandon their cars
Yeah.
in residential areas.
Yes.
And I know sometimes you get permit holders only parking
Yes.
where it is near,
Yeah.
around Milton Keynes Central Train Station. There's quite a few of those. So
Yes.
I guess you can apply to the council to set up resident
You
parking
can
areas.
do that, yes. It has been known for people to leave their car on your actual driveway as well.
So rude.
And then you're outside of, because it's private property, your own property, it's outside of the council's jurisdiction or the police's jurisdiction. So what you would have to do then is to issue an injunction for trespass to stop people parking on your driveway. And obviously take photos as evidence, dated photos as well if you can, keep records, and the court can empower a towing company to take the vehicle away, but obviously it's at your cost. But yeah, people do abandon their cars on driveways for holiday, 2-week holidays.
Yeah,
even
they don't care. They're off sunning themselves on the beach while you've got your
Yeah.
driveway blocked by
Yeah.
someone's car. It's
Yeah,
so
exactly.
rude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, what about neighbours disposing of rubbish or large household items, fridges and things outside the front or back of their property for a long time? You see this quite a lot where
Yeah.
they've got a new fridge and the old one just sits on their driveway till they get round to taking it to the dump. And I think especially at the moment, you've got to book a slot at the dump. Sometimes you can't
Yeah.
get one for a few days. Is it an offence to fly tip on your own property?
Well, it is fly tipping, but it's antisocial. It creates vermin, rats coming in, eating food, and it looks unsightly. So, if it was there for a short period of time, you mentioned a fridge for 3 days or whatever. If you've just bought a new fridge and you're getting rid of the old one but can't get rid of it immediately, don't really see a problem with that. But if it's persistent and it's always there,
Yeah. So there's some houses that you walk past and there's always a sofa in the front garden. It's always a sofa. I don't know why.
and you never see them sitting on it, do you?
No, I don't know what that's all about. So that sort of thing, it's an eyesore. It's on their property.
Yeah.
But if you're the neighbour and you feel like it's bringing down your property value and it's just not nice for the
Doesn't-
neighbourhood,
No.
then what should you do?
It's not attractive. So you can, again, go to the local council. They can issue a statutory nuisance under Section 79 of the Environmental Protection Act 1990. If it poses a health and safety risk, they have a duty to intervene as well. So they have authority to take enforcement action. They can serve an abatement notice requiring the neighbour to reduce or eliminate the nuisance and the rubbish. Sometimes the rubbish can be left on your own land and then it looks like you're the one that's fly tipped, or just in the street generally. And the problem is that the local authority wouldn't necessarily come and collect it until bin day, because it kind of creates the notion that you can just leave your rubbish anywhere and someone will come along and collect it.
Yeah.
So, what do you do? So the council will investigate where that rubbish has come from and take further action.
Yeah, and especially when it's a bit windy, it might be blowing all the way up and down the street
exactly.
if it's just been left in a bin bag.
Yeah, and the rats could open up the bin bag as well. And
Exactly, that happens.
And then
Yeah.
and then you've got like food waste going down the road, which creates more vermin. So if the local authority are unable to do anything, again, we can get an injunction requiring that to be moved and to prohibit future items being left.
Okay, good. Next scenario. Your neighbour has just got a CCTV camera or a ring doorbell or one of these things where your property is also in their shot. So you feel like, although they probably haven't done this on purpose, you're being recorded on their CCTV. Is there anything you can do about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a tech-savvy era now, aren't we? So we've all got all the gadgets. We've got CCTV. It's cheap. It's inexpensive. You put it up to look over your property. We all have ring doorbells as well. They tend to be okay and just cover the sort of front door area. But CCTV, we've had cases where it's focused onto the neighbour's garden, and the neighbour might have a hot tub and want to enjoy that, and doesn't want to be recorded by their neighbours.
No.
It's a breach of their privacy. So it brings up a data protection issue under UK GDPR and the Data Protection Act 2018. So again, speak to your neighbour and say, did you know that your camera is pointing directly into my garden or at my property? And see if they will adjust their camera just slightly. I mean, it may have blown in the wind, point in your direction. The neighbour doesn't want to record what you do in your garden at all. They just want it focused on their own property for their own security and protection.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, on the plus side, if you got burgled, you'd be going around to your neighbour saying, have you got any
Yes.
footage that might be useful to the police? So,
Exactly. So it's subjective. So you might not mind it being on your property.
but you probably don't want it pointing at your hot tub in the garden.
Not really,
No.
no. Or whatever you decide to do in your garden with your family and your children. You
But
don't want to be
also,
recorded.
maybe it might be filming through your window, so you
Yeah.
don't want to be worrying
Yeah.
if there's a camera high up that can see into your
Yeah.
bedroom window. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
or bathroom window, even though it might be frosted, you still see the images
Yeah.
through it, can't you? So not good. So speak to your neighbour in the first instance, and the neighbour might be horrified to learn that it is pointing that way, and will adjust it. But if they don't, we could arrange mediation to get a discussion between the parties. We can file a formal complaint with the Information Commissioner's Office, and they can advise the CCTV holder whether it breaches any privacy laws and give guidance to the parties on corrective action. And ultimately, we can apply for an injunction to prohibit that CCTV camera accessing any part of your property.
I guess it's the same if you've got a neighbour who's got a telescope pointing out of their window
Yes.
towards your property, or
Yeah.
or you see them with binoculars.
Yes.
I don't know if that really happens these days. It was something from like Carry On movies in the 70s, but you
Yeah.
don't really want to spot your neighbour with
No.
binoculars in the window looking over your garden in your hot tub.
Well, that might be a police community support issue to send them round, and
Yes.
it might be that they like watching stars, and when the telescope is not in use, it's sort of dropped down, and it might be pointing at you, but it's not being looked through. So
Yeah, it's a little bit seedy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, ornithology.
yes.
Okay, so how about trees and tree branches? What can you do if you've got a neighbour with an unkempt tree that's overhanging over your property? Is that your responsibility because the branches are in your
Yeah.
land? Is
Well,
that
yes,
how
you
it
can
works?
do something. I mean, my neighbour has a pear tree that overhangs into my garden, so I enjoy the spoils of,
Oh, so you can get free pears.
if they're hanging in your garden, you can take them off.
Wow, that's cool.
But equally, it can block sunlight onto your grass. It can just things can fall off it, or birds can do their business hanging
Yeah.
off the tree and whatnot. So you can trim the branches back to a degree to the boundary line, or to the where it starts overhanging. You must put the trimmings onto your neighbour's land. You can't keep the trimmings. So
Really?
you have to put them over, yes. It's called profits aprondra, the right to take from another's land. So, as I said before, taking the fruit, that's the right to do
See,
that.
your neighbour might take offence at you cutting all the tree
Yeah.
branches and throwing them over the fence into
I
their
mean,
garden.
strictly speaking, legally, that's what you're supposed to do. But I'd probably, if you put them in your own garden waste bin, then it depends what it is. I mean, if you're chainsawing off massive branches, then
And then
you
using them
might
to
want-
make a coffee table.
Well, yeah, you might want to have a word with your neighbour first, but also you might want to check with the local authority whether there's a tree preservation order on it. So, and follow the guidance about trimming back, because if you kill the tree, that's a hefty fine for you if you do that. So
Wow.
you'd need permission, and I think you can be fined up to £20,000 for touching a tree with a preservation order upon it. So just check. It shows you on the council's website where these trees are to protect them. But generally, if you've got a tree overhanging, trim it back if it's causing a nuisance or disturbance.
Okay, that's really useful. Okay, next, what can you do if a neighbour is blocking access to a registered easement? So this is where you've got a space that you share, like a shared access to a driveway or something like that.
Well, an easement is the right to pass and repass over a neighbour's land. And it's normally registered at the land registry, so it's clear what you can and can't do. It can be on foot and it can be on a vehicle as well, in a vehicle. Sometimes you see them at the back of the garden where there's gates across every fence so you can take your bins out. And as you say, it could be a shared driveway. But if the neighbour was to lock the gate or put an obstruction up or fence off an easement so you can no longer enjoy that, then you can speak to your neighbour, let them know that there is an easement there. Again, they might not even know. So, the details are available at the land registry, and you can show them that the easement's there and it's being used. If they refuse to, we can offer mediation to try and get the parties to talk. And then we could apply to the court for an order for the obstruction to be removed and to remind the neighbour as to what that easement actually is and when you can use it.
Okay, that's really useful. And how about boundary lines? So if a neighbour has put a fence in their garden and you suspect that they might be a little bit cheeky, they've put the fence maybe on the other side of the existing fence, so they've got an extra couple of inches of your land. Can you do anything about that? Does it come across as a bit petty, or is it perfectly reasonable to be complaining about that?
We've seen recently lots of fences being blown down in the gales that we've had, and when the fencing contractors put the fence up, often they've misunderstood the line, or the neighbours directed them to sort of take a few inches or to move it where they believe the boundary line was. They should put it where the boundary line is and should follow where the previous fence was. You can hire a land surveyor to determine where the boundary line was. We can look at historical images of Google Maps to see where the line was and determine where it should be. We can speak to the neighbour and try and come to an agreement as where it should be. If it, in your suggestion, if it was a few centimetres over, it's actually classed as de minimis, so there is an acceptance that it's over, but it's so small that we shouldn't really interfere with it, especially if the fence has gone up. But
okay, and what's the limit for that? Just a few couple of centimetres.
But you should try and certainly if I was putting a new fence up, I would say to my neighbour, this is where I'm going to put it. Are you agreeable to that? It's all about communication and discussions with your neighbour just to make sure.
But also they're benefiting from the fence as well. So you might be paying for the fence, but you're both seeing the the fence is stopping you seeing into each other's gardens.
Correct.
So you're having the benefit. And I think, is it a thing where whichever side of the fence posts are, that's who owns the fence?
No, that's a myth. So firstly, yes, both parties are benefiting from the fence, but it's got to be in the right place. If you look at the original title deeds, the actual plan when the property was built, not the land registry plan, you'll see an inward or outward T. And if it's an inward T, it means that you are responsible for maintaining that fence. An outward T, your neighbour is. If there's no T, then it's a joint responsibility.
Okay, that's interesting, because I think sometimes if you've got a square garden, you've got neighbours on every side, and it's like, do you have to buy 3 sections of fence, or can you say, right, that's your fence, you put that one up? Especially when you move into a new property, sometimes you don't get a proper fence, you just get a little
chicken wire thing, isn't it?
At the bottom to show you where the fence needs to go. So that's tricky. So what can you do about boundary disputes with a neighbour if you've got a disagreement about where the boundary line is? What would you do to try and resolve that?
Well, we'll try and do it informally by looking at images and sort of drawing out on a land plan where it might be or where it's supposed to be. But if the parties can't agree, we'd hopefully share the costs of a surveyor to map out where it should be, and they can use very good measurements and fine instruments to determine that, and they can file a jointly agreed plan that's land registry compliant to the land registry, so those measurements can be recorded officially on the title deeds.
I mean, to me this sounds expensive, and I think for the sake of a few inches of fence, maybe, you know,
You'd be
it's
surprised.
not worth the expense of that, but
Yeah.
people are very particular about this
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And is there a time limit on any of this stuff with boundary disputes? If a fence has
Yeah.
gone up and you don't say anything for a certain length of time,
Yeah.
do you have to kind of accept that?
Well, you can claim adverse possession if you are without force or secrecy. You are stealing, well, not stealing, but adversely possessing someone's land, shall we say. And the time limit for unregistered land, so something that's not recorded at the land registry, would be 12 years. But if it is recorded at the land registry, it would be 10 years. But the land registry will write to your neighbour and ask them if they object. But generally speaking, if you've enclosed it without force or secrecy, you've maintained it, and there's been no objection from the neighbour in 10 years, you can have it recorded that it is your property.
There's a lot of this sort of land here in Milton Keynes where it's actually owned by the Parks Trust, so
Yes.
it's the sort of at the back of your garden. A lot of people have kind of this wild area between there and the grid road, and you might want to kind of cheekily move your fence back a bit and think no one's going to notice because no one ever walks down
Right.
there because it's just, you know, just wilderness.
Yeah.
If you can get away with it for 10 or 12 years, then that becomes your land.
Well, I'm sure the Parks Trust would object
probably
to
spot
that,
it.
and it's there for a reason, isn't it? So so people can enjoy that walking up and down, and it's not your land, but if you fence it off and you're prepared to wait 10 years and have it objected by the Parks Trust, such that you've got to take it all down again, then so be it.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging that. I don't
No,
want
no, of
to
course.
think I'm
Of course.
inciting.
But if there was no owner, if it was unregistered, then maybe you want to try that. 12 years though for unregistered land.
Okay. Does the average individual who owns or occupies land have a duty to take care for their neighbours?
Yes, you do. So you can't create a hazard, something that could cause a problem. There is a case on this, Leakey versus the National Trust, 1981, to show that you do have to take a duty of care in relation to a hazard, and the occupier should be what is reasonable to expect of him in his individual circumstances. And the case there is Goldman v Hargrave, 1967. And that was an interesting case because a tree was struck by lightning and set on fire. So the defendant chopped the tree down but didn't douse it with water. He decided just to let it burn itself out, but it spread to the claimant's land. So he sued him for negligence and nuisance. And that established that a person can be liable in negligence and nuisance if they fail to remove a source of danger that they knew or ought to know of and could foresee that harm it might cause.
Wow, everything has happened at some point in history.
Yes. Peculiar set of circumstances. But yes, as long as you don't create hazard or danger on your neighbour's land, then you should be okay. If your tree was to fall over on a neighbour's land, it damages the fence, and your neighbour is responsible for the fence, then do the right thing and pay for the fence. It's your tree that's fallen over.
Very interesting area of legal work. So if you've got a litigation issue that you want some personal help with, then talk to George and the team here at Franklin Solicitors, and hopefully that's given you some general advice about some of the most common areas of litigation. But I'm sure there's pages more of different circumstances
we
we could
see everything. Yeah, we see it all.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, George.
Thank you,
and
Chris.
we'll see you on the next episode.
Take care.